Hey, what's good everybody? I'm Akin, and welcome to today's vlog. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I sure did. Had a great time spending time with my family. Now, I'm recapping week 13 of the college football season. At the end of this week, the BCS standings changed, where some teams lost their chances to play for a BCS bowl game, and one team losing their hopes to play for a national title. But before we begin, I would like to talk about my Texas Longhorns. They ended up losing their game this past Saturday to Texas A&M, their arch rival, 24-17. Now, for the first time since 1997, and the first time under Coach Mack Brown, Texas had a losing season, and they are ineligible to play in a bowl game. Rough season for the Longhorns. They ended up playing pathetic this year. They just couldn't get everything together. But I just had to talk about that. Now, I'm going to talk about the teams that are still qualified to play for a BCS bowl game and a national title for some teams. We're going to begin with Oregon playing at home against Arizona. It was a little bit of a scare because at the end of the first half, Oregon was down by 5 points, but they ended up going back to work in the second half due to an 85-yard touchdown run that helped spark the Oregon Ducks by running back Josh Huff. And he had a great run. He ended up starting off in the outside, then cut back in the middle to go for the 85-yard touchdown run. Now this sparked the Oregon Ducks offense, and it ended up getting their offense back together in the second half. Oregon ended up winning 48-29. Now, for the second straight year, they clinched the Pac-10 championship and an automatic bid for a BCS bowl game. If they win next week, they will most likely play for a national title. In the SEC, there was a big thriller between Auburn and Alabama. I picked Alabama as an upset win, but they ended up losing 28-27 due to the efforts of Cam Newton. Now, I said that in order for Alabama to win, they had to stop the run, and they somewhat did. Auburn totaled 108 yards rushing. Cam Newton did score a touchdown, but he was held to just 41 yards rushing the whole game. Well, actually, 41 yards. Now, they just couldn't get everything together in the Alabama secondary, and they ended up forcing Cam Newton to throw the ball more. And he ended up throwing the ball for 3 scores. Good game for him. He ended up beating them with his arm and not his athleticism. He ended up doing to a lot of third and longs, like I did say, but he ended up converting them and ended up rallying them back 24 points down to get the win. Now, the Heisman voters should just give Newton the award after this big win. 24-point comeback against the Crimson Tide in a road game, just give it to him. That's all I got to say about that. Now, in the Big 12, Nebraska ended up crushing Colorado 45-17. Now, in the Big 12 North, Nebraska will be the representative, and they will play the winner of the South Division. And that winner was Oklahoma, who ended up beating Oklahoma State 47-41. Now, with this win, there was a 3-way tie between Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas A&M. The reason why Oklahoma won the South Division was because of the rankings of the BCS standings. They ended up being just a couple of ranks higher than both Texas A&M and Oklahoma. So Oklahoma will play Nebraska in the Big 12 championship this week. In the Big 10, there ended up being a 3-way tie between Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Michigan State. Wisconsin is definitely going to get the bid over Ohio State and Michigan State. Why? Because this past weekend, they ended up crushing Northwestern 70-23. This is the second game this season that Wisconsin scored at least 70 points. They had a great year. Even though they lost to Michigan State earlier this season, they ended up crushing teams going towards the end of the year. And they ended up beating Ohio State earlier in the season when Ohio State was #1. That's why I think they should just get the notch over Michigan State. Michigan State had a good year, but they ended up trailing behind most of their games. They had a good year, but they didn't really dominate their games like Wisconsin did. And they just didn't do too well. Now, Ohio State should get just a little bit of a notch over Michigan State. Even though both teams did not play, Ohio State had a better season. They ended up beating Iowa, who crushed Michigan State earlier in the season. So with that, I think Ohio State should get that notch, and they did, being ranked number 8, while Michigan State was ranked 10th. So that's why I think Ohio State's just a little bit they ended up being just a little bit better than Michigan State. But Wisconsin should be just the favorite as an automatic bid for a BCS bowl game, the Rose Bowl most likely. Now in the ACC, Virginia Tech cruised past Virginia 47-7. So they're gonna wait on the Atlantic winner between NC State and Florida State. Florida State did not play in the ACC game this week. They ended up playing their rival Florida and ended up beating them. But they was waiting on the winner between Maryland and NC State. Florida State needed Maryland to beat NC State, and they did, 38-31, due to the receiving efforts of receiver Torrey Smith, who caught 224 yards of receiving and 4 touchdowns. Great game for him. I actually have him as a good prospect for the NFL. He can't come out this season. With this loss, NC State was bumped off the ACC championship run. So Florida will get that notch over NC State because of this loss. I think Florida should give Maryland a big hug and a great thank you for beating NC State. Good job for the Terps for ended up spoiling the NC State season. In the Big East, ended up being a 3-way tie between West Virginia, Connecticut, and Pitt. West Virginia ended up beating Pitt in their backyard brawl 35-10, which caused them to have a tie between Connecticut and West Virginia themselves. So I think that if Connecticut wins this week against South Florida, they should get the notch in the automatic bid for the BCS bowl game because they beat West Virginia and Pitt. I hope that Connecticut wins this week, and I have them winning. But we will see. They still have 1 week to go. Now, the biggest loss this week was Boise State. They ended up blowing their game against Nevada due to their kicker who missed a couple of field goals at the end of the game. Kellen Moore had a great game, but the reason why they lost was basically because their kicker. Sorry to call him out, but he just had a bad game. While there was I think he missed a 30-yard kick. Come on, man. Those are easy ones. Those are gimme ones. And then plus he missed the kick in their overtime game. So with those missed kicks, Nevada ended up converting their field goal and won 34-31. Now, with this loss, Boise State not only lost their chances to play for a national title, but lost a chance to play for the BCS title. And quarterback Kellen Moore lost his chances to win the Heisman. If he had won this game, he could have had a nice shot to win the Heisman Trophy. But we will see at the end of the season. But I was disappointed in Boise State. I thought they was going to end. I had them going to the national title, but they just couldn't get it together and ended up losing. Bad loss for them. That was a triple loss. Kellen Moore losing the Heisman, losing their chances to play for a national title, and losing the black championship to Nevada, who ended up beating them in a tiebreaker because they won. Rough season, bad ending for Boise State, but they still can do good in the bowl game, but they're not going to make it to a BCS game. Now, this week is going to be championship week, and I'm going to see you this Thursday on my blog. Thank you for watching today's video. My name is Akin. Be easy.